All right, the second part of the test looks at inequalities and systems of inequalities, all of which have two variables. So we're not just looking at a number line here. Now, with there being word problems, it really is important that we know all the different ways they could ask a question. So for this symbol here, they could say is greater than, is more than, or possibly using that word over. So I normally think of this as greater than, but more than would be the same thing. This symbol here is less than, or you could say under as well. That would be another way of doing this. And then at least is a very common word. So you got to be at least 16 to drive a car. That does not mean less than 16. You don't see many toddlers driving around in cars. So at least is definitely greater than. And are you allowed to drive at 16? Yes, you are. So you'd have an equal sign here as well. It could also say no less than. So in other words, the opposite of less than, which is why you'd have greater than here and equal. And minimum's a possible answer as well. And at most. So, hey, it's getting close to dinner. Don't need to eat too many snacks. You can have at most 2 cookies. Does not mean more than 2 cookies. It means 2 or less. And for that reason, that's why we have the equal sign here on this one as well. So at least is not less, and at most is not more. And hopefully those two examples of the driving and the cookies will help you remember which is which. All right, let's see what we got here. Jazzy goes to Comic Con. The prices for autographs are $50, photo ops are $35. She wants to spend less than $300. Which inequality shows this? And we can see we've got a little picture here that summarizes that information. Hey, it makes sense to use A for autographs on this question and P for photos purchased. And we're just trying to match these things up. So it says autographs as 50, so we know that's 50A. We can see that photos are 35, so we know that's 35p. And actually, if you look at the answers, you can see that every single one has those. The only thing that's different on these answers is these symbols here. So this one says less than, so I know less than points to the left. So I know that it's going to be this one here. And can't spend 300 because it says you've got to spend less than 300. So I don't need the equal sign on this question, so I'm going to avoid answer D. Tickets for the school soccer game are $6 for adults and $5 for students. The school is hoping to raise at least $500, which inequality shows this. So straight away, we can see the 6 goes with the A for adults, 5 goes with the students, so 5S. And we're going to add all the prices together to find out how much money we raised. And very similarly, notice it's going to be, well, I said it was going to be the same. It's not quite the same here. They've been a little sneaky here. They put 6S. So that's definitely not true because it's $6 for the adults. So I'm going to ignore this answer and this answer, and I'm looking between these two. We said at least, so just like driving, you've got to be at least 16 to drive. At least means you've got to be that age or more. So this one would be more or greater than in this case. And at least 500. If we get 500, we'll be happy. So we're allowed equal. And for that reason, it would be 500. It would be greater than or equal to. The vending machine at school sells bottles of soda for $2.50 and candy bars for $1.50. You can spend no more than $15. Which graph represents this? Now, to begin with, this seems like a very different question until we think about, hey, if we can actually figure out what the equations for this are, then we can actually type it in and then we can look at what the graph looks like and then we can pick our answer. So try and pick out things that go together again. So for this one, soda dollars are 250. A soda bottle, sorry, at 250. Now I'm going to change the soda into X. So let me go ahead and put that one straight away. You can see from my picture that sodas is the X value here as well. So it makes sense to do that. Candy bars are 150. So we're going to add 150 and Y. And you can see that candy bars are on the Y axis. And then no more than. So more than is greater than. So no more than then is the opposite. So that would be less than or equal to. You can spend $15. You just can't spend more than $15. The fact that we can see that these are solid lines as well is a clue that we need this solid line here. Because without that, we're just going to get dotted lines. And then 15. Now, I might need to zoom out just a little bit for this one. And I'm going to kind of move the 0 over to the side as well so it matches up. And let's see what we got here. Well, we got 10 on the y-axis. And we got 6 on the x-axis. So this has 10 on the y-axis. This has 6 on the x-axis. And you can also see the shading is in the correct side. And for that reason, I'm going to pick that answer. And just so you can see, I already had it pre-typed on this one here, but that is indeed the answer for this question. Alice is buying gifts for the holiday season. Small gifts are $5. Large gifts are $9. She needs at least 12 presents, but can spend at most $100. Now, they've been a little sneaky on this because they put the dollar symbol here. They've then thrown another piece of information out, and then the last one is $100. So we know all those numbers with dollars need to go together. So Small gifts, $5, 5S. Large gifts, $9, 9L. We're going to add those together. And then it's got something to do with 100. Now, once again, unfortunately, these are all the same thing. We've got to make sure we pick the right one out. So at most, when you have at most 2 cookies before dinner, that's not more than, that's less than. 2, 1, 0. That's the options for you. So for this one, we need to make sure we pick less than or equal to. And that actually gives me 2 choices. So I need to look at the next statement. She needs at least 12 presents. So that's not less than 12, that's 12 or more. And for that reason, I would select this answer. This one says the number of presents together must be 12, or greater, sorry, small and large. And this one says the price of the small plus the price of the large must be less than or equal to 100 because the question said at most 100. Once again, don't need to type it in, just got to figure out which one it is. Now, if we're struggling on questions like this, one sure way of getting the answer is just check every single one until we find out the correct answer. Y is less than -3 over 2x minus 1. Now, as we're looking at questions, sometimes if you look a little quickly, and I'm just going to move this around to kind of match this one up a little closer, you might think straight away, oh, this one's pretty good. This is the right answer. Certainly the darkest shaded region's in the correct place. This line looks in the right direction, so does this. But notice this line is solid and this line is dotted. So that's not what I want. I want to make sure this line is going to be solid. So I can actually start fixing answers here. I can actually change that to an equal sign and then now look at the picture. There's dotted, that's good. That's solid, darkly shaded region is here. I think I found my answer. Let's see if we can find out which answer that actually is. Here we go. I found my answer just by typing each of them in. So if you're not sure, you can actually just keep guessing at every single sign, keep trying things, see if it works until you get there. Or you can just use a little common sense like I did. Saw something was wrong, you know which color's the wrong thing, and then you can change it just a little bit to find out that correct answer. And there you go. You can see from that one that that was the correct answer. Sometimes they're going to ask you which region it is. So remember for questions like this, we're looking for the darkest shaded region. So x is less than or equal to 2, and y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x plus 1. So there's the darkest shaded region. So on my picture, that looks like region 2, and we're done. That's one of the easier questions that we see on the technology enhanced packets, and a question that we certainly have to do. And once again, I'd already typed it in just in case. All right, one more word problem. MetroCard A charges $5 a week and then $3.50 for each train ride. MetroCard B charges $2 a week and then $4 for each train ride. What does this tell you about the MetroCards? Now, this is one that we want to write in the form y equals mx plus b. And the reason we know we want to do that is because of this thing here. Something's changing in this question, and it's how much you're going to pay depending on how many rides you make. So on the first example, if you just have one train ride, you're going to pay $5 and you're going to add $3.50. If you go for 2 train rides, though, you're going to do $5 plus 2 times $3.50. 3 rides, $5 plus 3 times $3.50, and so on. So the $3.50 here, as it's for each ride, that means that's the thing that's changing, and for that reason, that's going to be our variable. So x as in this question is going to be the number of rides that we actually take. And don't forget, we've got to add on $5 at the start of the month. And you can see, if you don't use any rides at all, you're just paying $5 for your card and you're not traveling anywhere. And then same for the second one, $2 a week and $4 for each train ride. The $4, as that says for each, that's the thing that's changing. If I do one ride, $4 plus $2 a week. If I go for 2 rides, it's that $2, then I've got to pay $4 twice, which will be $8. So that's the thing that's changing. And then I can come up with a similar equation for this one. And I don't see where they cross right now, so let me just zoom out a little bit. Here we go. And then we got the answer 6 and 26. Now, if we're rushing, we might well go ahead and just select this one here straight away. Oh, look, it says 6 and 26. If you can find 26 train rides for $6, you're doing pretty good. For starters, if you went on just one ride, $5 plus $3.50 is going to be more than that. So actually, it's the other way around. It's this one here. $26 will get you 6 rides. And you can kind of see that. If it's $4 for each train ride, 4 times 6 is 24. Add on 2, 26. So we said initially that X was going to be the number of rides. And for that reason, when I click on that dot, X is our number of rides, which in this case is 6. And then 26 was actually the cost for this question. So just because it comes out as 6 and 26 does not necessarily mean that it's that way round. And you've got to use a little common sense to check that as well. And there was it just zoomed in just that little bit more to make it a little bit clearer for you. And that is the end of that section. That is the section on inequalities. Make sure you know those vocabulary words because they're really important to figuring out which inequality you're going to use. And without that, you're kind of guessing between four options.